The next evolutionary mechanism that we'll be talking about is gene flow. Gene flow is a mutation that is referencing movement and migration. So specifically, our definition of gene flow is the movement of genes or individuals who carry those genes between populations. Migration is an example of gene flow, but only if a group is migrating into another population and they're mixing together. So migration is not always gene flow, but gene flow can often include migration. Gene flow is a little bit harder to determine in terms of randomness. It is a yes and no sort of answer. In terms of predictability, we might be able to predict if gene flow can occur or not. So if we have our picture here with a mountain, if there's one population on one side and one population on the other, and they don't travel well, we might be able to predict that gene flow between those two is probably going to be limited. However, we cannot necessarily predict the endpoint of movement if it happens, or the impact that it'll have on the population that the organisms are moving into. So this one is really a yes or no. In terms of variability, it's also a little different. It depends on if you're looking at the population organisms are moving from, or the one that they're moving into, or if they're moving back and forth. So just to make this a little bit clear, if we look at our butterflies here, if our yellow butterflies, if one of them takes off and moves into the population that was previously only orange butterflies, that's an increase in variability within the new population. Nothing's happened back here to the old population, just one of these has left. However, if these two populations are mixing together, so there's individuals yellow coming here, orange going back over there, what happens is that the variability between them decreases, which means they become more alike. So these two populations that were once distinctive now are looking more similar. So in variability, it's also an increase and a decrease. One of the things that we talk about often with gene flow is isolation. So when we look at how a new species is created, which we'll talk about more later, the first step is basically isolation. So this means there's a lack of gene flow. So an example of this would be an island that's pretty far away from another landmass. When we went through our walk through time, we looked at how the continents moved, so it would make sense how something that was once part of one landmass might now not be part of that anymore. And so something could become isolated. So just to sum up, gene flow is about movement that can involve migration or other types of movement, and it's about the mixing of new individuals into a population or one population and another mixing together. So it is both random and non-random depending on what you're looking at, and it will always increase gene flow in the population organisms move into, but between populations, it can sometimes make them look more similar.